And so I run, sick of always waiting. Dreams are overrated. This is my point. Where did we go wrong? And what will we be right? This is just a waste of time.
I'm Tommy Gunn from Extreme Spin, and in this episode I'm going to talk about a lot of really basic stuff. I'm going to talk about precession, tilt correction, where to put the string on your finger, and then some basic tricks like trapeze and double or nothing. So let's start out with where to put the string on your finger. For some reason, there's sometimes a debate about this, and there really shouldn't be, because there's really only one area you should be doing it. Lots of kids, they know that you're supposed to put it on your middle finger, but they put it all the way down at the base. And that really gives you no motion with your finger. You can't control the string at all. It's just completely dead on there. It's all, you'd have to do everything by your wrist. And there's more than just that. So the proper position is between your two knuckles. So basically right in the middle of your middle finger. And you know, you can put it a little higher or a little lower, but it should still be within those two knuckles. And the reason for that is with the split bottom mount, when the string is on your middle finger, you can easily move it into the path of strings or get it out of the way. So there you go. It's really quite simple. That's why you do it. There shouldn't be a debate about this. And if you're putting it somewhere else, you should probably move it back to the correct position, because it'll really help you out later on when you're doing harder tricks. If you're new to yo-yoing, you might realize that there's some pain in your finger where the string goes. And maybe it feels like it's cutting off the circulation in your finger and all that. Well, eventually you will get a callus there, and it won't hurt anymore. And you know, right now you might see people yo-yoing all day. You see people at contests just, you know, yo-yoing really hard. Well, that's how they do it. It's because you get a callus. Just like playing guitar, you get calluses on your fingers and all that. So if it hurts right now, don't worry about it. Although, you know, you don't want to do it too much. Don't yo-yo too much at first if it's really hurting until you get a callus. Just to be totally complete, you should also know that when you make a slip knot, the single string, when you put it on, the single string should be towards your thumb. The next topic is precession. I'm not going to talk too much about this, but basically a yo-yo is a gyroscope. And what happens with gyroscopes is something called gyroscopic precession, also called torque-induced precession. And basically, as it's spinning, if it's not perfectly balanced, which they never will be, and you know, there's all these other factors that affect it, it's not in a vacuum or anything like that, what happens is it'll start to turn. Now, with the good yo-yos, it doesn't do it very much, so we'd have to wait here for a while before you'd really even be able to notice it. But it'll start pointing in a different direction. And that, you might notice that if you're doing a really long trick, like, you know, you're doing whatever, blah, blah, blah. Eventually, you might end up sort of facing another direction. But you don't really have to worry about that. And, you know, it doesn't happen very much, so if you stick to shorter tricks, it won't matter. So I'm going to show you how to do trapeze. Now, to do trapeze, first you have to learn how to do a breakaway, which is all a breakaway is this. You just throw it down side style. And, you know, there's a name for it just because it used to be a trick, but that was back in the old days. Nobody actually even refers to it by name anymore. So what you're doing when you throw side style is it's not actually the same as when you throw front style. When you throw front style, you can actually use full movement with your arm. You can throw it all the way down if you want, give it power the whole way, and then let go at the very end. And so you can get a really hard sleeper, and you know, I mean, that's how you break world records. But when you're throwing side style, you might try doing that, but then you'll realize that it's kind of an awkward position of your arm, and that's probably what throws people off at first. Is that you know, when you're first learning it, you can never throw it straight, and you're wondering why that happens. Well, it's because you actually let go a lot sooner. You're really just it's really just a wrist motion eventually. Another thing about throwing side style is that you don't actually hold the yo-yo perfectly straight in line with your arm like you do when you're throwing front style. You might actually sort of tilt the yo-yo a little bit so that your arm can be on more of an angle. And so like, for instance, mine's actually tilting a little bit like this, so I don't have to have my arm perfectly to the side. I can have it like this, and then my wrist will just throw it straight. So here is a trapeze. You throw, your side style breakaway, and then it's one of the most basic tricks. All you're doing is you just land it on the string. But what a lot of people try to do is they just kind of go like this and hope it lands on the string. But really, you want to get it as close to your finger as you possibly can without actually hitting the yo-yo or having the yo-yo hit your finger. So you want it to just barely go over. It should land, just an inch or two away from your finger. And that way, it really can't miss because it's just hopping straight over. If you do it really wide like this, there's so much that can miss when you do that. Let me show you a few other tricks like trapeze. So here's your basic trapeze. If you flip it back over your free hand, over your middle finger, and land it on your throw hand index finger, that's a trapeze's brother. If you go the other way, starting from a trapeze, you go towards your throw hand and over your index finger. That's called a 1.5 mount or a 1.5 mount. And now that is actually wrapped around. That's not just sitting on the string. Like with trapeze's brother, it's just sitting on the string like trapeze. But if you're in a 1.5 mount, it's actually hitting the underside of the string, so to speak, and it's wrapping around. And then you have, double or nothing, and then you can go to triple or nothing, and all that, and on and on. There are a whole bunch of things. You can, do double or nothing, and then back, and, whatever. Instead of a trapeze, you let it go around both index fingers, and then the end part is just like a trapeze. So what you want to do is try to get the first part of the trick to be way up on your finger, like towards your knuckles. So that way, when the yo-yo comes around again, you can get it towards the tip of your index finger, and that way you won't hit these other strings. But you still want to get it right just about an inch away from your finger when it goes over. Now, it depends on the length of your string, and eventually, you just want to learn how long that string is and exactly how far apart you need to hold your hands. And now, once you get good at it, it doesn't even really matter how long the string is. You'll be able to figure it out like right away. Tilt correction is a really important thing, and it's not something that people really talk about much, and it's something most people just sort of learn on their own, but I figured I'd point it out and explain it a little bit so you understand it, because at first you might not just get it on your own. So when you're throwing a trick like a trapeze or something, you might throw it a little bit on an angle. And so right now the yo-yo is tilted towards me, and that's not good. You want it to be perfectly level if you can. So if you're on a trapeze, what you can do is move your free hand forward, like away from your body, or towards your body to actually tilt the yo-yo. I'll change sides so you can see it. So if I move my left hand, my free hand, towards my body, it'll tilt the yo-yo, or if I move it away, it'll tilt it the other way. Now I'm doing this a whole lot, which normally it's really subtle. You actually sort of, depending on the tricks you're doing, this might happen naturally. Like the yo-yo might start tilting, and so you kind of just naturally fix it as you go along. And so that's how you can maintain a good sleeper, is by constantly fixing it. And it's as you're going, so it's not, you don't stop and then correct it. It's just sort of like, as I'm spinning this around, I can actually move my hands a little bit in either direction, and that'll fix the yo-yo. which hand you use to correct the tilt on the yo-yo depends on which way the yo-yo is spinning. So if you're throwing side style, it doesn't matter where it is on the string. I could be in a trapeze's brother, and it would still be my left hand that is changing the tilt of the yo-yo. If say I throw it this way, so now it's spinning the opposite direction. Now it's my right hand that is changing. I mean, obviously I can still move either hand, but you know, if you're just paying attention to which way the top of the yo-yo tilts, then it's the other hand. All right, well, I guess that's about it for precession, tilt correction, trapeze, string position, all that stuff. You can go chat about it on the forum if you need more help, and thanks for watching.